Look at this guy. You serious?
Oh my God, what is that, a toy badge? This is priceless.
Laugh while you can. Federal jurisdiction doesn't need your approval.
Yeah, and what, you're gonna arrest us at a cocktail party?
If I have
But
to.
you know exactly why I'm here.
Insane.
What happens when power hides behind humility and judgment arrives dressed in arrogance? On a sun-drenched rooftop in Manhattan, Marcus Chen stood watching a couple destroy their own future with every laugh, every sneer, every cruel word they threw at him. They saw a black man in a suit. He saw their careers ending in real time. Sarah and Brad Williams had no idea that the nobody they were mocking controlled their destiny with a single phone call. They thought they were untouchable at this VIP gathering. They thought wrong. Because in 30 seconds, Marcus would reveal 3 words that would drain every drop of color from their faces and turn their celebration into a nightmare they'd never forget.
Marcus Chen never imagined his Saturday would end with him standing on a rooftop deciding whether to destroy 2 careers before sunset. The morning it started like any other. Marcus woke at 6 a.m. in his modest Brooklyn apartment, the same studio he'd lived in for 3 years despite his 6-figure salary. His mother had raised him to stay grounded, to remember where he came from. The framed photo on his nightstand reminded him daily, a young Marcus at 8 years old holding his mother's hand outside their Harlem shelter, both of them smiling despite having nothing. Now, at 32, Marcus was a senior federal agent with the Department of Justice, specializing in corporate fraud and discrimination cases, but he never flaunted it. He drove a 10-year-old Honda, wore affordable suits from outlet stores, and preferred quiet evenings reading case files to Manhattan's glittering social scene. Today was supposed to be different, though. His college friend Devin had invited him to a rooftop celebration for Devin's promotion at Blackstone and Associates, one of New York's most prestigious consulting firms. Marcus had hesitated. These corporate gatherings made him uncomfortable, full of peacocking executives and forced networking. But Devin had insisted, "Come on, man, you work too hard. Just come celebrate with me for a couple hours. Free food, amazing view, and I promise, no boring business talk." Marcus had agreed, picking out his best suit, a charcoal gray number his mother had bought him when he graduated from Georgetown Law. It wasn't designer, but it was clean and professional. He looked at himself in the mirror before leaving, adjusting his tie. Respectable. Dignified. Still, a familiar weight settled in his chest, the one that always appeared before entering predominantly white spaces. The rooftop venue was stunning. 40 stories above Manhattan, the city sprawled beneath them in every direction. The Empire State Building piercing the southern sky, the Hudson River glittering to the west. About 50 people mingled around cocktail tables, the demographics exactly what Marcus expected. Predominantly white, affluent, confident in the way people are when they've never had to question their place in a room. Marcus found Devin near the bar, and they embraced warmly. For 20 minutes, everything was fine. Devin introduced him to colleagues, and Marcus made polite conversation, his guard slowly lowering. That's when he noticed the couple. Sarah and Brad Williams stood near the VIP table, a reserved section with the best view and premium bottle service. Sarah wore a bright blue designer dress that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent, her blonde hair styled in perfect waves. Brad stood beside her in a crisp blue polo and khakis, his arm draped possessively around his waist. They radiated the careless confidence of people who'd never been told no. Marcus wouldn't have noticed them at all, except their eyes kept finding him across the rooftop. Quick glances, followed by whispered comments and barely concealed smirks. Marcus had experienced this before. The assessment, the judgment, the unspoken question, What is he doing here? He tried to ignore it, turning his attention back to Devon's story about a difficult client, but he could feel their stares burning into his back, could hear their laughter cutting through the ambient conversation. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his supervisor. "How's your Saturday? Don't forget, Monday, we're announcing the Blackstone investigation. All evidence compiled, several executives going down, including VP level. This one's going to make headlines." Marcus's thumb hovered over the screen. Blackstone and Associates. The same company hosting this event. He glanced around the rooftop with new eyes, suddenly aware that several of the people here might soon be facing federal charges. His phone buzzed again, this time a photo from his supervisor. Headshots of the primary targets. Marcus's blood ran cold as he scrolled through the images. The third photo showed a man in a blue polo shirt. Brad Williams, Vice President of Client Relations, facing charges of systemic discrimination in hiring practices and fraudulent diversity reporting. Marcus looked up slowly, his eyes finding Brad across the rooftop. The man who'd been staring at him with contempt for the past 20 minutes was about to have his entire world implode. And Brad Williams had no idea he was mocking the man who'd built the case against him.
Marcus slipped his phone into his pocket, his mind racing. Professional protocol dictated he should leave immediately. The investigation was confidential. He shouldn't be here, socializing at an event hosted by a company currently under federal investigation. But something kept his feet planted on that rooftop. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fate, maybe the universe's sense of irony. He decided to stay quiet, stay invisible, finish his drink, and leave within the hour. But Brad Williams had other plans. "Excuse me." The voice came from directly behind Marcus, sharp with irritation. "This section is VIP only, reserved seating." Marcus turned slowly. Brad stood 3 feet away, his expression a mixture of annoyance and smug authority. Sarah flanked him, her arms crossed, a cruel smile playing at her lips. Marcus glanced down. His foot had accidentally crossed into the VIP area while he'd been checking his phone, barely an inch over an invisible boundary marked by a subtle rope barrier. "My apologies," Marcus said evenly, stepping back. "Didn't realize." "Well, now you do," Brad replied, his tone dripping with condescension. He looked Marcus up and down, his gaze lingering on Marcus's off-the-rack suit with barely concealed disdain. "These seats are for executives and special guests only. I'm sure there's plenty of room over by the service entrance." The service entrance. The words hung in the air, loaded with implication. Devon appeared at Marcus's elbow, tension radiating from his body. "Hey, Brad, this is my guest, Marcus Chen. Marcus, this is Brad Williams, one of our VPs. "Chen?" Brad's eyebrows rose. "That's interesting. You don't look." He caught himself, but the damage was done. The unspoken words hung between them. "You don't look Chinese." "My mother is Chinese-American. My father was black. I inherited my father's features. It happens sometimes with genetics." "Fascinating," Sarah chimed in, her voice saccharine. "So what do you do, Marcus? Are you in consulting too, or—" She let the sentence trail off, her eyes suggesting she already knew the answer would be disappointing. "I work for the government," Marcus replied. Brad's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Oh, a government employee. Well, that explains the suit." He gestured at Marcus's outfit with mock sympathy. "Public sector salaries, right? Must be tough seeing how the other half lives." Devon stepped forward. "Brad, that's completely inappropriate." "It's fine," Marcus interrupted, placing a hand on Devon's arm. He locked eyes with Brad, his expression unreadable. "I manage just fine." "I'm sure you do," Sarah said, her tone suggesting the exact opposite. She leaned into Brad, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that carried perfectly to Marcus's ears. Probably here to network. You know how it is. These government people always looking for their next opportunity. Can't blame him, Brad replied, equally loud. If I was stuck in some dead-end bureaucrat job, I'd be hitting up events like this too, trying to meet people who actually matter. Marcus felt Devon's body go rigid beside him. Other guests had started to notice the confrontation, conversations trailing off, heads turning their direction. Actually, Marcus said, his voice still measured and calm, I'm quite satisfied with my career. Not everyone measures success by the price of their polo shirt. Brad's face flushed. Excuse me? You heard me. Marcus took a small step forward, his presence suddenly more imposing despite being the same height as Brad. Success isn't about designer labels or VIP sections. Some of us chose careers based on making a real difference rather than maximizing our stock portfolios. A real difference? Brad laughed, louder now, playing to the growing audience. That's rich coming from someone who probably spends his days pushing papers and stamping forms at the DMV or wherever. I don't work at the DMV. Social services then? Food stamps? Sarah suggested with mock sweetness. That's wonderful. Really noble work, I'm sure. The crowd had fully circled them now, a ring of witnesses to the humiliation Brad and Sarah were attempting to orchestrate. Marcus could see the calculation in Brad's eyes. This was entertainment for him, a chance to assert dominance, to remind everyone present of the social hierarchy he believed was fixed and unshakable. Devon looked stricken, caught between defending his friend and navigating the political minefield of confronting a VP at his own company. Marcus caught his eye and shook his head slightly. Not worth it, his expression said. But Brad wasn't finished. You know what, Brad said, turning to address the crowd. I actually admire people like Marcus here. Seriously, it takes real dedication to work some thankless government job, making what, 40, 50,000 a year, knowing you'll never afford a place in Manhattan, never drive anything but a used economy car, never sit at the VIP table. He paused for effect, his smile widening. But somebody's got to process our parking tickets, right? Somebody's got to work the low-level jobs that keep the system running for those of us actually creating value. The words landed like physical blows. Marcus felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the same feeling he'd experienced countless times throughout his life, being judged, dismissed, reduced to a stereotype based solely on his appearance. Several people in the crowd looked uncomfortable now, shifting their weight, avoiding eye contact, but no one spoke up. No one interrupted Brad's performance. Sarah placed her hand on Brad's chest, her voice carrying across the rooftop. Baby, stop. You're being too harsh. I'm sure Marcus is perfectly happy with his choices. Not everyone has the drive for more. Some people are content being... She paused, searching for the word. Average. You're right, Brad conceded, patting her hand. I apologize, Marcus. That was unfair of me. Just because you'll probably never have the influence, the connections, or the financial security that comes with real power doesn't mean your life has no value. You contribute in your own small way. Marcus stood motionless, his jaw clenched, every muscle in his body tight with restraint. His phone felt heavy in his pocket. In it, documentation of 18 months of investigation, evidence of Brad's systematic rejection of qualified black candidates, records of falsified diversity reports, testimony from 7 employees who'd experienced discrimination under Brad's leadership. 3 days. In 3 days, federal agents would walk into Blackstone and Associates and arrest Brad Williams at his desk. But right now, in this moment, Brad stood victorious, surrounded by colleagues, humiliating a man he believed to be powerless. Nothing to say? Brad pressed, emboldened by Marcus's silence. Come on, defend yourself. Tell us all about your important government work. What is it you do exactly? City planning? Park services? DMV clerk? The question hung in the air, the crowd waiting for Marcus's response. Marcus looked at Brad for a long moment. Then he smiled, a small, knowing smile that didn't reach his eyes. Would you like me to tell you? Marcus asked softly. Would you like me to explain exactly what I do?" Something in his tone made Brad hesitate, some instinctive recognition of danger he couldn't quite identify. "Sure," Brad said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Enlighten us." Marcus reached into his jacket pocket.
Marcus's hand emerged from his pocket, holding a small leather credential wallet. He flipped it open with practiced ease, the late afternoon sun glinting off the gold badge inside. "Special Agent Marcus Chen," he said, his voice cutting through the sudden silence like a blade. "Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, Federal Badge number 7743. The color drained from Brad's face in real time, a wave of comprehension washing over him with devastating force. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "For the past 18 months, Marcus continued, his voice calm but carrying to every corner of the now silent rooftop, "I've been the lead investigator on a federal civil rights case. The target? Blackstone and Associates. Specifically, systematic discrimination in hiring practices, falsification of federal diversity compliance reports, and creation of a hostile work environment for employees of color." Brad's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. "Your name, Brad Williams, Vice President of Client Relations, appears 147 times in our case file." Marcus's eyes never left Brad's face. 147 documented instances of discriminatory practices, inappropriate comments, and policy violations. We have emails. We have recorded calls. We have testimony from 17 employees who've experienced your particular brand of leadership. The crowd stood frozen, every person holding their breath, bearing witness to the complete destruction of Brad Williams' world. "Monday morning," Marcus continued, his voice calm but carrying to every corner of the now silent rooftop. "At approximately 9 a.m., federal agents will arrive at Blackstone's offices with arrest warrants. You'll be charged with multiple federal violations. You'll be escorted from your office in handcuffs. Your career, the one you're so proud of, the one that supposedly makes you matter more than people like me, will be over before your morning coffee gets cold." Sarah stumbled backward, her designer heels catching on the hem of her dress. She grabbed at Brad's arm, but he seemed incapable of movement, his entire body rigid with shock. "The parking tickets you mentioned," Marcus's voice carried a razor's edge now. "I don't process those. I process cases against people who believe their money and their position put them above the law. People who think they can treat others as less than human without consequences. People like you." Devon stood beside Marcus, his expression one of pure shock. He'd known Marcus was a federal agent. They'd talked about his work in general terms over the years. But this level of authority, this kind of power, Devon had never imagined. "Wait," Brad finally managed to speak, his voice hoarse and desperate. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding. I didn't mean... Those comments just now, they were just jokes, banter. I didn't mean anything by them." "Oh, I know you didn't mean them about me specifically. You had no idea who I was. And that's precisely the problem, Brad. You didn't mock me because you knew I was the investigator on your case. You mocked me because you saw a black man in an affordable suit and assumed I was beneath you. You revealed exactly who you are when you think there are no consequences." "This is entrapment," Sarah cried out, finding her voice. "You can't... You were undercover. You tricked us." "I wasn't undercover," Marcus corrected her calmly. "I was invited to a party by a friend. I identified myself when directly asked about my employment. I said I worked for the government, which is true. You two made every assumption after that. You filled in the blanks with your own prejudices." He paused, letting that sink in. "Everything you said tonight, you would have said to any black person you deemed average or beneath you. The only difference is that I have the authority to ensure your actions have consequences. But make no mistake, your words tonight weren't the crime.
They were just confirmation of what we already proved over 18 months of investigation. Brad's legs seemed to give out, and he groped for a chair, collapsing into it. His face had gone from red to white to a sickly gray. Around them, the other Blackstone executives had started backing away, probably calculating their own exposure, their own liability. "I'll fight this," Brad whispered, but there was no conviction in his voice. "I have lawyers. This won't stick." Marcus closed his badge wallet and returned it to his pocket. "You have that right. Federal court, public trial. Every discriminatory email read into the record, every rejected application from qualified black candidates laid out for a jury, every complaint from employees who tried to report your behavior and were silenced. It'll all be public record. I'm sure that will be great for your reputation." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Brad one last time. "For what it's worth, Brad, that suit you mocked? My mother bought it for me when I graduated Georgetown Law, top 15% of my class. I wear it to remind myself where I came from and why this work matters. I'll be wearing it again Monday morning when I watch you get arrested." The rooftop had descended into chaos, hushed conversations, executives pulling out phones, the sound of careers imploding in real time. Marcus walked toward the exit, Devon following him silently beside him. Behind them, Sarah's sobbing mixed with Brad's frantic phone calls to his lawyer, a soundtrack to the collapse of everything they built their identity around. At the elevator, Devon finally spoke. "Marcus, I had no idea about any of this." Marcus pressed the down button. "I know. It's classified. But after Monday, it'll be public knowledge anyway. Did you plan this? Coming here tonight? Knowing—" "No. I came to celebrate with a friend. I got reminded once again of why my job exists." The elevator arrived. As the doors opened, Marcus turned to Devon one last time. "Some people see power in titles and VIP sections. I see power in justice. And Monday morning, justice is coming to Blackstone and Associates."
Monday morning arrived with brutal efficiency. At 8:47 a.m., Marcus Chen stood in the lobby of Blackstone and Associates, wearing the same charcoal suit his mother had bought him years ago. 6 federal agents flanked him, their badges clearly visible. The receptionist's hand trembled as she picked up the phone to notify security. They didn't need an escort. Marcus had memorized the building layout months ago. Brad Williams was at his desk when they arrived, a coffee halfway to his lips, his computer screen displaying an email to HR titled, "Urgent, Legal Concerns." He'd spent his entire weekend consulting lawyers, making calls, trying to build a defense. None of it would matter. "Brad Williams," Marcus said formally, his voice carrying through the suddenly silent office floor. "You're under arrest for violations of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, conspiracy to defraud the federal government, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked into place as dozens of Blackstone employees watched. Some looked shocked. Others, particularly several Black and Hispanic employees, wore expressions of grim satisfaction. They'd known. They'd experienced Brad's discrimination firsthand. They'd reported it and been ignored. Now they were being vindicated. By Tuesday, the story had exploded across every major news outlet. "Federal agent mocked at corporate event hours before making arrest," read one headline. "Blackstone VP's racist comments on tape before federal takedown," declared another. Someone at the party had recorded portions of the rooftop confrontation. The video went viral, 14 million views in 48 hours. The public response was overwhelming. Some praised Marcus as a hero. Others criticized him for not revealing his identity sooner. The debates raged online, in offices, around dinner tables across the country. But Marcus didn't pay attention to the noise.
He'd moved on to his next case, another company, another pattern of discrimination, another set of victims waiting for justice. 3 weeks after the arrest, Marcus received a handwritten letter. It came from a young black woman named Tamara Jefferson, one of the 17 employees who'd testified in the Blackstone case. She'd applied for a position under Brad's leadership 3 years earlier. Straight A's from Howard University, a glowing recommendation from her internship supervisor, fluent in 3 languages. Brad had rejected her application, later hiring a less qualified white candidate. "Dear Agent Chen," the letter began, "I'm writing to thank you for giving me back my faith in justice. When Brad Williams rejected my application, he told me I wasn't the right cultural fit for Blackstone. I knew what he really meant. I knew it was discrimination. But I had no power, no voice, no way to fight back. I spent 3 years wondering if I'd imagined it, if maybe I really wasn't good enough. Your investigation proved I wasn't crazy. It proved that my qualifications mattered, that the rejection wasn't my failure, it was his crime. I just accepted a position at a Fortune 500 company that values diversity. I start next month. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being what power should look like." Marcus read the letter 3 times, then carefully filed it away with the dozens of others he'd received over his career. These letters, not the headlines, not the viral videos, not the praise, these were why he did this work. Brad Williams eventually pleaded guilty to avoid trial, accepting a 2-year sentence and permanent prohibition from holding management positions in companies with federal contracts. Sarah Williams filed for divorce 6 months later, citing the financial ruin and public humiliation. Blackstone and Associates underwent a complete restructuring under federal oversight, implementing new hiring practices, diversity training, and accountability measures. 4 other executives lost their positions. The company paid $8.7 million in settlements to affected employees and applicants. But the impact rippled far beyond one company. The viral video of the rooftop confrontation sparked national conversations about implicit bias, the way people make snap judgments based on race and appearance, the assumptions that allowed discrimination to flourish unchecked. Dozens of companies proactively reviewed their hiring practices. Several employees at other firms filed discrimination complaints they'd been too afraid to pursue before. The case became a teaching tool in law schools and diversity training programs. Marcus Chen became a symbol, though he never sought the attention. He continued living in his modest Brooklyn apartment, driving his aging Honda, wearing affordable suits. He declined most interview requests, preferring to let his work speak for itself. But on the first anniversary of Brad Williams' arrest, Marcus agreed to speak at a high school in Harlem, the same neighborhood where he'd grown up, where his mother had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, where he'd first dreamed of using law to protect people who had no voice. Standing before 200 students, Marcus didn't talk about his viral moment or his successful cases. Instead, he spoke about his mother, about shelters and food banks, about being underestimated and stereotyped his entire life. Power, he told them, isn't about VIP sections or designer clothes or commanding respect through fear. Real power is about using whatever authority you have to protect those who have none. It's about being in rooms where injustice happens and refusing to stay silent. It's about building cases, gathering evidence, and ensuring that one day the people who abuse their position face consequences. He paused, looking out at faces that reflected every shade of brown and black, faces that probably experienced their own moments of discrimination, of being judged and found wanting by people who didn't know them. "They'll underestimate you," Marcus said. "They'll make assumptions about who you are and what you're capable of because of how you look. Let them, and then prove them catastrophically wrong." The auditorium erupted in applause. As Marcus left the stage, a young girl approached him. Maybe 14, her hair in neat braids, her school uniform crisp. She held out a notebook for him to sign. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Marcus asked as he signed his name. She smiled, her eyes bright with determination. "A federal agent, just like you," she replied. Marcus handed back the notebook, his heart swelling with an emotion he couldn't quite name. This moment right here was worth every difficult case, every late night, every confrontation with people who thought they were untouchable. "Then, do it," he told her. "And when you do, remember, justice doesn't care what suit you're wearing. It only cares that you show up."